studying the relationship between what are possibly the two most important human qualities, intelligence and creativity. My interest in the subject stemmed from my work in the position of human resource manager in IT company in Moscow. For 7 years, my team and I have been selecting and recruiting candidates to create a talent pool of the company. And during this process of selecting candidates, I noticed that future high performers were not necessarily people of high intelligence, but people with a specific combination of intelligence and certain personality traits. They were curious, open-minded, able to generate novel solutions to complex problems. In modern psychological research, this constellation of traits is associated with creativity. This observation that intelligence is not enough led me back to academia when I am trying to figure out how to better identify and measure the creative talent. And today I would like to share some research with you which I think is important in understanding the interplay between intelligence and creativity. And I would like to start with Thurman's experiment. Lewis Thurman was an eminent American psychologist who strongly believed in the power of IQ, or intelligence quote, to predict a person's future life success. To prove it, he set up an experiment with gifted children. At the first stage of his studies, he asked teachers to nominate students they thought were gifted. At the second stage, he gave those kids an IQ test. And finally, he set up a cutoff point. Only those whose IQs were higher than 135 were retained in the study. And he followed these kids since childhood over the entire lifespan. And it turned out that people in his sample were indeed more successful than average, had better health, and their salaries were higher. But what is striking about this study is that of people who were nominated by teachers, but were not retained in the study because their IQs were not high enough, too became Nobel Prize winners. These people are William Shockley and Luis Alvarez. They both got Nobel Prizes in physics. The biggest lesson learned from Thurman's study is that intelligence itself is not the only ingredient needed for an outstanding achievement. And when we define genius only as a person having an exceptionally high IQ, we exclude people who are able to innovate and make discoveries. Intelligence and creativity are not the same thing, and they work differently. It's different brain muscles, if you want. While intelligence tests measure what we call convergent thinking and indicate how well someone is prepared to figure out the right answer, most creativity tests demand what we call divergent thinking, or the ability to generate multiple ideas and solutions. I give you an example to better illustrate this idea. What if I ask you, what auto brand does this sign represent? What will be your answer? And this is the right answer. And now, if I ask you the very same question, but in slightly different manner, what could possible alternative interpretations for this sign? This is where magic happens. This sign could be turned into a wind turbine, NH3 or ammonia, or slingshot, and many others. Where divergent thinking is at play, there is an infinite number of possible solutions. In our everyday life, most of problems that we encounter call for divergent thinking. Yet it is different proxy for intelligence, like scholastic assessment test and not creativity test results that are needed for getting to any competitive university. You'll be surprised to know that almost 100 years after the start of Thurman's experiment, PISA, which is the Program for International Student Assessment, will include creative thinking into its assessment only in 2021. But better late than never, right? Imagination is more important than knowledge. And research shows that Einstein was right. After decades spent studying careers of creative scientists, Dean Kate Simonton from the University of California has made several observations. First, he noticed that about 10 years of continuous experience in the domain were needed before you can do something creative in your domain and produce your first game-changing work. And second, he noticed that creative achievement was not a function of the level of formal education attained. The relationship might be better described by an inverted U-curve, meaning that there exists an optimal level of training beyond which additional education and knowledge might have a hindering effect. Let's consider another evidence on the relationship between intelligence and creativity. And here I have good news for you. Since 1950, people's intelligence quota have risen, meaning that we as humans become more and more intelligent over time. This observation that each subsequent generation has shown an increased level of IQ over the previous generation was first made by James Flynn and was thus called the Flynn effect. Unfortunately, there exists another trend, which is dramatic decline of creativity test scores over the past decades. And this decline concerns two major creativity components. One is fluency, or the ability to produce and generate many different ideas to open-ended questions, and another is elaboration, or the ability to develop and build up ideas. As you can see on the graph, since the decline in elaboration thinking persists over the last 30 years, meaning that we are losing our ability to elaborate upon ideas. This trend was first noticed in the United States, but actually many other countries are also concerned. Educational reform in China, for instance, is urged to release children's creative potential, where students demonstrate overachievements in math, in international tests, and low rankings in imagination and creativity. Why is it so? What are the reasons for this trend? The author of the research behind the graphics, Dr. Kyung-hee Kim from the College of William and Mary, suggests that it could be because of the emphasis that is placed on standardized tests in modern school. In our educational practice, we teach students how to get conventional answers and the answers they're supposed to know. Not surprisingly, they feel helpless when they face problems where new solutions are demanded. Another reason for creativity decline is that more and more parents and institutions, be it preschools or kindergartens, are replacing play activities with more teacher-led practice. Since 1991, 1981, and 1997, because of the time children spend in structured activities, children's free play time is estimated to drop by 25%. In our quest for intelligence, we seem to forget that children are naturally wired to play, and play is the root of creativity. In play, children use the imagination and learn how to use everyday objects as the tools they need for the game plot. They learn how to collaborate, how to create and recreate their stories, how to play different roles. In play, a belt becomes a train, or two pieces of construction block may be transformed into a plane or a dinosaur. Or two shoehorns may be transformed into... Let's test your imagination. What do you think the boy is doing here? Nice try, no? Yes. He's not yet 3, but he masterfully plays his imaginary violin. This is my son, by the way. The focus on school testing and school preparation actually robs our kids of the opportunity to develop their creativity, as they simply don't have time to have fun. Artificial intelligence is challenging us as it shows how many of the tasks could be done well, if not better, by machines. Our ability to play with ideas is what makes us human, and it's the value that we as humans can propose in a human-machine civilization. I think it's time to bring creativity into education today. Enabled with imagination and creativity, our kids would have the chance to rewire their future. Thank you.